What I'm going to talk about has been a pet peeve of mine for actually for several years. In fact, when I got a call to speak here, I said, sure, I'll do this. This is going to be a topic. I quite don't know the answer yet, but this will give me like 6 months to help figure some things out. What I have up here is a little bit different than the name on the brochure, but it's really the same topic. It's how do we really influence and get our research really understood? I think the title in here is the role of market research in companies to succeed and fail. And at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. We have to have influence, and we have to have our information really understood to really, or else why are we there? You know, it's great that we learn about all the methods. It's great that we learn about all the things that we need to do the job. But if we don't have the influence, if we can't get our information really understood and implicated in the company, then what good is it, right? So as a background, to I guess let you know how I got here. So you know, she mentioned I was an HR block. An HR block, they've struggled the last several years. And at the end of every tax season, I would get the question, why are we down this year? And it just dawned on me a couple of years ago, that's the wrong question. The right question should be, why are we down the last 7 years? And that opens up to, takes you down a whole other path. But as a team, we thought we really knew what we needed to do as a company. But even though we had to FaceTime the senior managers, when it came down to planning and where the resources came, we couldn't get the company off the set of tracks that they were on. So I'm sitting back here, okay, as a research guy, what's my culpability in this? What should I be doing? And then it just dawned on me, well, wait a second, I was at these guys, great company, a company that really wants to have the best product and good marketers and a research team, but they've been declining over the last several years in returns. Then, well, Hallmark, what a great company. I can't say enough good things about Hallmark. The research team is state-of-the-art. They're innovative, do all kinds of great things. But wait, they've been declining over. So there's a trend going on here. I'm thinking, so what am I doing? Am I the commonality, or what's going on here? So take that with. So I've been doing a lot of reading on this related topic, and some of you may have seen this book from several years ago, The Fifth Discipline. It was an interesting book that was out, but I picked this up the other day, and I missed this the first time around. A study done in 1983 found out if you look at all the Fortune 500 companies in 1970, a third of them had vanished by 1983. An entire third of the Fortune 500 companies were gone just 13 years later. And then there's more research. So he finished this paragraph by saying, chances are that 50-50 that the readers of this book will see their present firm disappear in their working career. So imagine that. Half of you in your working career will see the company you work for gone. But wait, we're all smart people, and these guys out to create these companies they're smart to begin with, and we've got all this market research, so what's going on? A couple of years ago, the Corporate Executive Board wrapped up and put in a book a study that they call stall points. And they looked at hundreds of firms, and their conclusion was most all firms, if they haven't stalled yet, they probably will. But the most interesting part of that was right here. Why did they stall? The most important reason was not understanding when the market has changed. And you look at that and you think, wait, that's us. Isn't that us in market research? When the market's changing, isn't that supposed to be us that lets our company know that, no, we're over here? And so, do we have any culpability in this? So, I'm going to cover a couple of data points here, then we'll get to some potential solutions. Market Research Executive Board did a study among senior leaders. They showed how many of you want your market research team to be strategic partners with you. And most of them said yes. Now, what percent are your market research team strategic partners with you? And not very many. But, okay, why is that? We don't want to be. You know, one thing I believe in most researchers is that more than anything else, pay me less, but use my stuff. Let me share, let me be a contributor to you. I think most researchers have that mentality. We want to help. We want our information to be used and then be a good contributor. But why do we have a hard time doing that? And I've heard a couple people in a couple other sessions here say the same thing. Our roles have really changed over the last 10 years, 10, 20 years. What a good market research is today is different than what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It used to be, heck, when I started this back at Hallmark, if you were an analytical expert, you rocked. I spent my whole time, my whole career, I was focused there because that's what it took to be good. But then, you had to communicate it. So there are skills on how you put it and document it so people can understand it. But then you have a lot of projects. You have all kinds of things going on. You have multiple projects, not enough time, so you have to be a good project manager. But wait, then they start putting you in cross-functional teams, and that's a whole other skill set. And then they want you to be a good marketing and business strategist, so you can use this information, what does it mean, have the right recommendations, but it doesn't stop there. Then you have to be a synthesizer, because now we have sales data, we have data from over here and over there on the website and the social, we have so synthesis. So what does this mean? Pull it together in a nice summary, pithy summary, so you can explain it. And then you want to be consultants. That is a heck of a job. You know, but that's truly our expectation now. We're down here, that's cost of entry for us, even though we know how difficult that can be by itself, but it's hard. That's a ton of different skill sets right there. It's hard to have one person be good in all those things. I just put a couple of quotes here from team members that I love. This happened a few years ago. So not only do we not read each other's reports, we don't read our own reports. I'm sure you've done that where you got so much going on, the study really isn't that important. You get it from the vendor and you just pass it along, and you may say, haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but there it is. I tell you, as a director of the research department, one of my biggest fears was, you know, when you would give someone data, that was really important to them, but it was just one of 100 studies we did, and they knew my studies better than I did sometimes, which would always sort of scare me across my fingers. And anyway, Dave, I want to synthesize. There's so much I want to show and explain, especially to those who are new to the company, what the evenings and weekends just to get the studies completed. And so, throw all these different skill sets, and then we never have enough time, and we live in a world like that, and it's no wonder only 25% of the companies view us as strategic partners. Man. So what do you do with that? So there's bad news. So honestly, over the last several years, we've been trying, when I was HR Block, we tried all kinds of different things to help crack the code, and there isn't a code to crack. But there are some things we can do to become more effective. I really hesitate putting the next slide up here, and you'll see why. But I want to show why that there is hope. So what I'm going to put up here are just quotes about unsolicited, not the LinkedIn recommendations, but quotes that people have said about the HR Block team. And I don't want to come off self-serving, but I want to show that there's hope. McKinsey guy, HR Block, the best market research team among the financial service firms I've seen. Lou Corbone, if you've heard him, a great guy, experience engineering. HR the best I've ever seen them. So let me get off that screen. But the point is, we weren't any better than anybody else. We weren't better analysts. But we did try some specific things to be very intentional on how do you really break through and really have an influence where it counts. And I'm not talking about for this product over here, should it be green or red, or this feature over here. All that's fine. But for the big, real important strategic decisions, such as where do you go in the company, where does the company point to, where do we really put our resources, what role do we have in that? So how do we get there? Well, the first step is to recognize what we don't do. I read this book this last year, Plowing the Sea. It's a guy that is an expert in developing third world countries. And he said this quote in here, I thought, man, that's me. We have found that there is an overwhelming propensity for the leaders, when confronted by poor results, to do the same thing again, only harder. Boy. I don't know about you guys, but that's me. You know, literally heck, the reason I'm here doing my own little gig here is I spent 9 years at H&R Block, leaving before my family got up and coming home after dinner. And things still was, so anyway, I do, that's me. But working harder isn't the answer. We've all heard in consumer behavior that decisions are made based on emotion and justified rationally. And there's been a great brain research over the last 10 years that pretty much confirms this to a large degree. But then one day we're sitting in my office and we were figuring out this on this topic, and it dawned on me, wait a second, our senior leaders, they're people too. So, you know, maybe they're not making, so what this is, it's a light bulb went off. We just can't give them the data and say, here it is, don't you see? Because their reasons for their decision making sometimes may not be on the surface and may be emotional driven. We won't go into all these details, but I just listed some of them up here. But probably the biggest one, especially for H&R Block, was whether they call them mental models or shifting paradigms or whatever, but if you're a company that has been successful going this direction for years and very successful, all of a sudden, this is a path to success, getting the company from the field organization. It's not just the guys on the top floor, it's a field organization. It's inculcated throughout the company, get them to go over here. That is a big shift, and the more successful you are going over here, the harder it is to shift. That's a, you know, whether, again, call it mental models or shifting paradigms or whatever, all those terms, they pretty much mean the same thing. It's hard to move. But one of my favorite ones is, that I went firsthand with, is sometimes it's just an arrogance. I see a couple of heads now. I can say this, I don't work there. The chairman of the board used to be a former SEC chairman at H&R Block. Big finance guy, very successful. Through a boardroom coup, literally, he became chairman of the board. Well, at the time, we had probably one of our best ad campaigns called You Got People. All the metrics were, it was great. It was really communicating what we wanted to communicate. It was sending the right message across. But his mother was an English teacher, and she didn't like the ad campaign because it was not grammatically correct. And from there, you could not have any executive, you would not hear an executive ever support this. So I had to think, look at what it's doing for it. People understand what we're trying to say. We're moving we're moving the needle in the right direction, but it didn't matter at that point. So I won't go through these, and I'm sure there's more, but the point is that we can't rely just on the logic to get our point across. Yeah, we have to have logic, but sometimes it takes more than that to get through. From the fifth discipline, actually, I just stuck this slide in here. They talked about learning disabilities of firms. But again, one is escaping these mental models, which is one. The other is the enemies out there. And boy, was that big at H&R Block. Boy, you got those Intuit guys out there, those free tax prep, or these guys over here, but they weren't paying attention to the fact that our customer sat sucked, that customers felt like a number, that, but everyone else, that was the problem. Anyway, I won't go through this because I really have some solutions that may help here. Solution number one is more of an attitude shift. I love this quote. Jim Sharp is actually my old boss. You wouldn't know who he is. Leadership is not given, it's taken. So I have seen some people, whether in marketing or marketing, all through the organization, where we want to sit back and we want to wait. Boy, I wish they would just ask me what I thought. But no, let's go tell them what we think. It does take a shift in thought sometimes for some of us to say, okay, this is what I think is important based on all the information we have. I'm gonna go out there and do it, even though no one's asking. I'm gonna find a way to get the information out. A second mind shift is shoot for the stars and usually get out of the mud. This is a really, really hard issue. This is, if I have a life quote, it's this. And so at least start going in a direction. We'll never get all the way there, when you're done, brush yourself off, get up, and then try again. Maybe you'll get just a little bit further out of the next time. I think the problem that I would fall into is I would want to do all the right things all the time, but you can't. When you're just passing along studies sometimes without even reading them, you can't. So just take one issue. Don't think in terms of study, but think in terms of an issue. Just take one issue per year and really understand it and figure out how best to communicate. Maybe it's integrating in video, maybe it's having work sessions, maybe it's something else other than a report. Now, if you have teams, if you have a team of 5, and I did this, for each of the people on my team, okay, take one issue, we're going to find one issue that's important for the piece of business that you are responsible for. Now we're going to work it this year, we're going to find the solutions, we're going to figure out how to communicate it, we're going to live this issue. And if you have a team of 5 for, or whatever the number is, every year, giving 5 different issues out can have a big impact. You know, a lot of times, it's like advertising, right? When you put a lot of stuff into an ad, nothing gets through. But if you just pick one thing sometimes, that's what you're pointing out over and over and over, whether in the planning meetings or this or here or wherever it is, just take that one thing. So think of how we kick off a study. Here's the problem, then we figure out the study, then we report, and we go down that way. But sometimes we need to turn that around a little bit. And heck, what's the marketing concept? We've got to understand our target. Right? We'll start with who we need to influence. And maybe there's a way, or how you might want to take the study and how you do it and twist it a little bit for them. I'm about to do some very simple comm checks for radio comm checks. I would normally do those one-on-one, but this company, they need to see clients talk, and watching one-on-ones is the most boring thing in the world. So we're going to have small groups doing it. So it wouldn't be the method I would do just if I only thought about the study, but I want these guys in the back room watching and hearing the customers talk, and they've never done that before. So we're going to adjust the methodology slightly so we can really have more of an impact. If your key target is the finance guy, well, how can you build in financial numbers into it? If you're doing modeling of loyalty and retention, well, retention means so many dollars, which means so put it in his terms. So the point here, think of who you need to influence and as you're kicking off a study. A lot of us, I've heard a lot of people do really good on that. When you have a study, get engagement with the people you want to influence. Have them be part of the process. They're more likely to buy it at the end. A lot of people do that, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. But that is one of the easiest, well, it's not easy. Sometimes you just don't want to, it's not easy without them there. But it can be much more effective having them there as you're building the study and going through it, and they see the information for themselves. Where am I? Point 5, have a point of view. If you were running the company, what would you do? And so there's never perfect information. It always takes judgment. But if you were in the person who's trying to influence his shoes, what would you do and why? And tell people. You know, management doesn't want you to do this or that. There's a 30% chance here. Now they want, what do I do? And part 2 here is be bold when expressing it. I learned this. There's a consultant out there by the name of Larry Lyde. He was the acting CMO at McDonald's during the turnaround, and he did a lot of consulting in HR Block. I spent hours and hours in rooms with him. We're looking at data, and then he would get up and he would give his presentation, and man, he would just blow everyone away. And it dawned on me what it was. He had conviction. Now, he would say things in very absolute terms. Now, the challenge is us researchers were very comfortable in areas of gray. And we want to be very clear, well, this could happen, but that could happen over there. There's 32% chance here. But, you know, when you go down that path, you just lose people when management wants to know, what do I do and why? And this Larry Lyde, who's extremely effective out there, he would stand up there and very bold, this is what you need to do. He wouldn't even show numbers on the slides. He'd say, do this. and this is why. Even though, but of course, there's tons of data behind it. But he would be bold and would give his point of view. New perspectives, it's very good. Sometimes we get caught up in our ways of doing things, and looking at things from different perspectives is always a good thing. You know, taking the sphere and looking at it from here, and then looking at it from there and there, especially with tracking studies. So stat tracking studies has to be, again, it's not typically a fun report to read, right? It's not something that people say, where is that? But if every year you do that, let's look at it somewhat differently, or let's do this way, or let's it may be the same tracking data, but you're presenting it different, you may be modeling your retention different, you may be doing something different to provide a different look, and also give you a different perspective of how to look at the data. Okay. Everyone remember this book? Finally, I'm getting caught up on my reading. And this is a very good book by Zaltzman. And the whole story of that book is consumers think in storylines. We don't think with facts, we think with storylines. And you know, okay, who was the first person to fly across the Atlantic? Someone was that. Remember? Okay, who was the second? Well, you don't remember. Well, who's the third? You know who the third was. Well, no one remembers the third. But you remember the third because it was Amelia Earhart. She was the first woman to do it. But we like storylines. When it comes to history, you know the storylines. But when did Lindbergh do it? I don't know. Does someone know?
26.
27.
Good.
Or 26.
You know, and so. Okay, this is probably politically incorrect, but okay, take the Bible. Okay, who really knows all the Ten Commandments? But I bet most people understand the story of the Good Samaritan. They know the storyline, the parable. But do you know the facts and the dates and the lists and the do's and the do-nots and all that stuff? No, I don't know that, but you know the storylines. So I say that because, to give a plug for that book right there, how do you tell the story? And it's not simply organizing the data in a logical fashion. These terms came from that book, and I don't know if I like the terms, but so I'll just point out one here, what he's calling the rhetoric. When you think of a good story, it isn't just logically laid out. It has a situation, and then you build tension. And then there's a resolution of the tension. And then there's some, and so he was having, I went to a workshop by him, and he was having a think through the tension and the situation, build your tension, and then maybe bring it home with an anecdote or a story, like to tell the storyline. So even though it's a quant study, can you bring in a quote here from a qualitative, can you show a clip here to bring in the example? And then, well, what's this? Then you have you're listening, and then you can bring in, so what do you do about it? What's your recommendation? So think about what makes for a good story. It's not just logically laid out data. I went to, it was a day workshop of his, and I went in there, and he had to come in with a specific presentation we were doing. And I was having a meeting with the CEO 2 weeks later. I totally changed it, and I went in with the CEO, and I got him to change the organizational structure on several large departments. And this is the challenge. And so it all was due to how we structured this. Here's the situation, here's the tension, this is the problem it's creating, here's some examples to bring it home, there's a storyline, and then here's the solution. That's great. Then called in the VP of HR, listed and how do we change things. So anyway, that's, I highly recommend that book. Okay. You can tell as much about a good author from what is in the waste paper basket as you can from what's in the finished work. Remember, if you're only doing one a year, you know, it's the first time out when you put together, whether it's a document or a presentation or a workshop, there's test it, retest it, for whatever it's worth. This was my third time giving this. I went to 2 other places, Hallmark being one, and went through this. So what do you guys think? What would you add to it? And so we're working it, we're reworking it. And the guy that wrote that other book that I recommended said the best presentations like all good writing are not written, they're rewritten. So for that one thing you're trying to pull off every year, it's worth working that document, whether it may not be a document, it may be something else other than a document work. So work it and improve it. I had a big lesson. So a lot of our companies are seasonal. Even if they're not seasonal, there's planning cycles where, okay, now's the month where we're doing our strategic planning. Well, what I found is, you know, in research, we provide our results when we're done with the study. That makes sense. But what if the results you provide are not during the planning cycle, it's during an execution cycle, and so you have people say, hey, that's great, that's nice, but it's forgotten, it doesn't sink in because they're too busy executing. And so sometimes what we need to do is we have to sync our stuff up with the planning cycle so that when we're planning, the study may have been 6 months ago, maybe it's last year, maybe it's close to a year ago, but let's pull together all the important key points and bring them back and work with who's ever in charge of the planning cycle and put them into the process. The last thing is we live and die by our research reports, and we all know that that's not all the best way to do it, but there's so many, we've got to have a research report, but there's so many better ways, and I should say better, that is the best way to communicate in some situations. Other times we may want a video report. I saw the presentation by Target yesterday with ethnography, where we're showing a lot of video reports. There was an ethnography study with a guy with a dog on his lap. Work sessions are a great way to really inculcate who a market segment is. Let's have a work session on this segment. And let's talk about what they do in their spare time. Who are they? What are they like? And so by the time people leave that work session, they know that segment. More so than just reading the document. I'm just going to scan the stuff. Sometimes the real power is in the field. And you got to get those guys, so you're telling people in your corporate office what they need to do, but wait, it's these guys in the field that really call the shots, or executing. So maybe you need a roadshow for the field. Put together your best information and the information you think they need to know, and dress it up and volunteer to go out for a roadshow for the field. Now, we did this thing right here because we wanted people a newsletter, and it wasn't really to let anyone know about anything other than all the things we do as a department. And so to elevate our standing in the department, in the company, we had a newsletter that talked about, okay, we did stuff with the Super Bowl ad, and then we did this over here with our financial advisors business, and we did this over here. We put little snapshots in there, but our intent was just to let people know all the things we're involved in, and we really know your business, and we have all this information about the business. So there's a lot to think about more than just the report. And the last thing is there are better ways to work with research firms and clients. I think we can both do better in some respect. Personally, I like the model of, if you think about it in an ad agency, not so much how they're comped, but how they work together. Ad agencies, they come right alongside the marketing department, and what resources the marketing department needs, they're going to get. It may not be just advertising. It may be all kinds of different things. Heck, they've done it in research, right? So what can the research firms help? Given this new world of what we're expected to do, how can we work with our partners different? I have some thoughts here, but my time's about up. But that goes both ways. I think it takes the clients bringing in their research partners more to be part of planning sessions, to give them more background information, treat them like a part of the team instead of transactional. And if us clients do that, then there's some things. Yeah, I'm out of time. I go on and on. I'm stopping myself because I could spend a lot of time right now. So I think that's all 10. Yeah, there we go. Questions? There you go. I can keep talking. Let me ask you this, am I on track with it? Is this an initiative, or am I just in my own world with a company that's been trailing off and I'm just skewed? Yeah.
I've got a question. So if a senior in college came to you today and said, should I invest my career, should I continue in market research as a career, what would you say to that?
Yeah, market research is a great career. There's pluses and minuses. It's a great career because early on, you get involved in some high-level strategic stuff, which is just fantastic, earlier on in your career than you ever would anywhere else. I stepped out of research for a while, and I ran this division, $200 million division for when I worked with Sears and Walmart and others. And what I found, though, is even those $200 million, I was this little tiny piece of the company, and I missed sort of being sort of in the game with all these other fun things. So, and with that, because it was fun. Now, the downside is you cap it on the client side, you cap out your career. So, as the director of a Fortune 500 company, so now where do I go? To a bigger company? I don't want to do that, move my family. So that is, I see as a trade-off. It's still great. I think that you can be more and more strategic. There's so many opportunities. There's so many different ways you can go in it today. I think it's just a fun discipline. Yeah?
We talked a little bit yesterday about this. In most organizations, like you just saying, market research is sort of capped out at a director level, maybe a VP level. Do you ever see a day, or do you see any strategies that would ever say, we can actually have a seat at the table at the C level?
I think when you see all these challenges we're up against, it seems like that's really what we need. I've heard several years ago, I heard talk about that. I've never really seen it anywhere. I think we had HR Block, the challenge here, I think we had as much seat at the table as anywhere. I mean, literally, I had access to the CEO anytime I needed him. I was in his office a lot, but still, all these other dimensions and power within the team and stuff going on in the field kept us from getting where we needed to get to. So, yes, we should. I don't know if we will, but I don't know if that's, you can get there other ways without having to be a C person. That makes sense?
You talked, one of the earlier charts had consultants at the top as the sort of the highest level skill need. Could you talk a little about what's really needed and how many researchers are likely to be able to do that?
That is tough, but I will say, I'll give a plug for the Market Research Executive Board, if anyone's a participant in that, because they've been looking at this for several years. And what they've come back and said, and what some firms have done, like I think Motorola was one, they broke up their organization so that they have researchers, they have true synthesizers, which that's a different skill set. And then they have consultants. And there's all kinds of organizational challenges. Who's better than the other? Does that mean I'm higher than lower? And so it creates all kinds of other issues. But because the challenges, those are different skill sets. And so how do you really do that? But they want the consultants. I did this several times in our block. I go around with the senior executive. So what do you really want from us? And it was really fascinating at different levels, what the senior levels want, what the directors and managers want versus the entry-level people want. Entry-level people, I want it on time, I want the data, give me these numbers. The group managers want to just share the information about different parts of the business. The high level wanted be a consultant to me, tell me where to go, disagree with me, and that's the fun stuff. I think that's the fun stuff. I'm sorry, somebody else had anything? Yeah.
I would say being effective also is coaching, maybe stretching the client to newer technologies. Do you have any good stories about how you...
New research technologies?
Yes. Or maybe it's social or mobile or just...
I've never, I think people have a different experience. I've never had an issue. If they trust you, if we're the research group saying, hey, we need to do it, we're going to try it this way, we're going to do it over here. Rarely I've had an issue of pushback. Okay, if you guys are the experts, I'm okay. We're given the experts for all these things that we're talking about in the conference. We're good at it, and if people give us the expertise for it. But on the other hand, it's sort of cost of entry too. We need to deliver both. So I've never really had much. On the other hand, maybe I've never really gone, way out here on something different. So.
you.